Hello, everyone. I'm Molly Rowland, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. When my journey started on the spiritual path, I was 17 years old. I had just married, and my new husband's mother was very much into the metaphysical world. I really knew absolutely nothing about it. I had been raised in the Methodist Church, and that was my realm of understanding, but I had always been very curious about things that were beyond the knowing of the physical world. So I studied, I learned, I practiced, and I moved forward with the journey of life. And I was married for 22 years. And during that time, we made a move to Billings, Montana. And at that time, it was the summer of 1975 when we moved. In that fall, I was sitting in my kitchen reading a book I had just gotten on Saint Germain and alchemy. And I had read a few pages, and all of a sudden I had this really strange feeling. And I looked up in the corner of the room, and there was a huge violet flame. It went from floor to ceiling. And out of that flame came a voice, and it was the first time that I ever heard Saint Germain speak. And he said, "Beloved woman, you've made a soul agreement to be a trance medium, and I am your gatekeeper. I'm the Lord Saint Germain." And I knew what trance mediums did. I'd read enough about it. And I said, I'm not willing to share my body with other beings. I'm just not willing to allow some entity to come and speak through me. And he said, "Well, your soul agreement was with the White Brotherhood that they would use your body in the times to come to bring through channeled messages." And so I pondered that, and I said, "I'll do it, but only if I can channel the highest light that is." And so he spoke a word of consent, and the violet flame disappeared. I was scared to death. I absolutely wondered if I was possessed, if something dark had come into my life. And I put the book away. And it was probably about 10 years before I ever picked that book up again. But it was about 3 days later, and he said, "Beloved woman, have you made your choice?" And I felt in myself, even though logically I would say I was still not necessarily um, happy with the experience, I felt deep in my soul center that this was something that I was to do, and the right answer was yes. So I told him, "Yes, I will do this." And I was ready. As ego mind is, its logic is always, let's go do this right now. And it was about 12 years later, and many experiences during that time. I divorced my first husband. I married again. And I met some men from Washington, Spokane, Washington, who came through Billings, where we were living by that time. And they talked to me about metaphysical fairs. They were readers. It was very interesting. And they said, why don't you contact this woman who's putting on the fairs and see if you'd like to do one? So I gave the lady a call. Her name was Norma Cowie, and she was from New Zealand. And she was in Canada to put on a series of 4 metaphysical fairs. I had no idea what a metaphysical fair was, but I said, I think I want to do the 4. And everyone was just shocked because usually a newbie would not choose to do but one fair and they'd do it to try out to see if they liked it. But I signed up to do all 4, whatever comes. And so in the middle of October of 1985, I boarded a Greyhound bus to go to Vancouver, British Columbia. I had $50 in my wallet and a suitcase the size of a baby grand piano. I didn't know anything about the fairs, but I had been told that I would have a booth with a table and a chair. So I decided that I would make my booth pink because I like the feeling of pink energy. So I made a pink tablecloth and I made a little pink cushion for my chair. And I made a sign that was pink with my name and what I did. And I even got pink business cards with cranberry writing on them. And off I went, Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I got to Vancouver late at night and found out I didn't have enough money for a motel room. But the hotel was full of people that were joining the fair. So a woman came over and said, would you like to share a room with my daughter and I? And I said, yeah, sounded good to me. So the next day, we went in to set up for the fair, and it was in a coliseum. It wasn't just some cozy little bookstore or anything like that. It was, there were 150 people in the booths that we were going to fill up. And there were 300 people in what was called Reader's Row, people that just had a little round table and a chair, with a chair on the other side. And a lot of them were beginners. It was their first time to be at a fair. So I went in, I set up my booth, and I stepped out of my booth to look at it. And I looked to the right and I looked to the left. And all I saw was dark green, black, dark purple, emerald. I didn't see anything light and bright. And I thought, I wonder if I made a mistake. But for the very first time, I felt like my booth looked good. So I got in to wait. And I was so busy. The fair lasted for 3.5 days. And I was so busy that people even wanted to follow me into the restroom and try to get a reading from me. So that was my first experience, and it was rather profitable. The next experience was in Portland, Oregon, and it did not go so well. I had to borrow money to get back to Billings. So a month later, there was a big fair in Calgary. And so I took off to go to Calgary. And my second husband, that I was with at that time, said, if you go to do this fair, don't come back. So I packed up my things that I had. I moved them into my first husband's garage, and I went to Calgary. And when I came back, a woman in Billings said, you can come and stay with me. So the fourth fair was in Seattle, Washington, and it was on Halloween. And you would have thought that people would have just flocked in, and basically nobody came. But it was a wonderful experience. I learned a lot. I met a lot of people. And at the beginning of the next year, I went and did another fair. And this one was a little smaller. It was quieter, but I met some more people, including a man from uh, Newfoundland. And he was living in uh, British Columbia. And he was connected with a group of readers that went on the road. And he said, why don't you come and join us? So we went and did a few fairs. And I really enjoyed the getting to travel. We did fairs all over British Columbia, Vancouver Island, and all over Alberta. So again, it opened up my experience. It made me more road savvy. And that was really my big introduction into the metaphysical world. It was, as I say, 12 years before I began to channel the Master Saint Germain. But at the harmonic convergence in 1987, I visited with a woman that I had talked to on the telephone, and I went to her home and I did some readings. And on the Sunday I was there, I did a channeling for the group. I didn't intend to do a channeling for the group. I was just going to talk to them. But as I was talking, again, I felt a rather strange energy. And the people said that I changed into a figure that looked quite masculine. Half of me was like in sunlight, half of me was in darkness. And the being spoke to them of its gratitude for what they had done for the earth during the harmonic convergence. That was my first time channeling in, I would have to say, trance, because I remembered nothing of what had happened. It was all I know is what the people told me. So I was on my way that weekend to visit my mom down in Texas. That's where the accent comes from, folks. And it's never gone away. In fact, in Canada, they love to put me with somebody with a really strong British accent because the contrast were good for the program. So I traveled. I went all over the country, and it was the fall of 1988. I was living in Powell, Wyoming, with the woman that I had visited the first time, where I channeled the first time. And I was doing readings, channeling for the family. And my daughter called and said, I'm going to have a baby. And I said, I will be there. My daughter was in Florida, and I had no more idea how I was going to get to Florida than I could have flown to the moon at that moment. But it seems like that my whole life, as I look back on it, has been a series of 11th hour saves of surprise outcomes and a development of a very strong sense of faith in what I don't know. So I set off for Florida in February of 1989 to be there for the birth of my first grandchild. And that grandchild is now 36 years old. I've been channeling Saint Germain for the last 39 years. And I can say that from the very beginning, it has been a very amazing experience. Certainly when I graduated from high school and they said, what are you going to do? I would have never been able to tell them what I was going to do because it was beyond my sense of imagining. So as time has passed, I have grown, I have changed, I have left a lot of who I thought I was behind, and I've moved forward. So here I am in 2025. I just celebrated my 83rd birthday in on September 6th. And I am absolutely excited about where things are going. If I look out into the world, I see the chaos. But over the last 4 years, because on the autumnal equinox of 2021, I fell and broke both ankles. The ankles are about understanding. And I can say quite clearly that over the last 4 years, I have come to understand myself, my life, and so much about the inner world that was not even a spark when I fell. So the times have changed dramatically, and I am here to share those changes with you. I channel many different masters. Saint Germain is my gatekeeper, and the gatekeeper is the producer director of the play that your soul wrote before you came into this lifetime. The master that not picked you or that you chose, but through a mutual agreement of your soul and the master that is your gatekeeper, you came to this place to follow your own personal soul script. What I've learned is that we are all part of one great, I suppose you could call it, organism. We are here on the planet together, 8 billion souls, give or take a few, and we're all a part of each other. There's no one that is separate because we're divinely created in this way. We are uniquely individual. We have our own unique understanding of life, our perspective for what we believe, what we trust, what we fear, what we doubt, and our thoughts. Saint Germain calls us divine creative masters. Our ability to take what we think, what we feel, what we believe, and use it to create the life that we desire. It isn't about what do I do, because as I speak now, the order of doing, of making things happen, of applying force in life, whether it's to how I get something done or whether it's someone else applying force on my life, which has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. We are now coming to a point of change where we absolutely are being called to come home to ourselves. To come home to ourselves and remember who we were created to be. Because so many people that I talk with are really looking for something. They're looking for themselves. They're looking for a piece that they feel is missing. They're looking for peace within themselves. Many of them are also looking to find a way to change the planet. And Saint Germain has suggested that the way you change the world starts within you. So as you change your perspective, as you change how you know yourself, as you find where you have throughout many lifetimes built barriers, hung veils of resistance, and kept yourself separate from others. And as you begin to know yourself, to open your heart, to feel that deep connection with the divine within you, it's not something that someone else can give you. The Master Jesus has spoken that he came here to help a planet that was in such a state of affairs that there was a consideration of, quote unquote, scrapping the project. And he came not to tell you what to do. And he didn't come to save you from yourself. He came to remind you that you were made in love, that you were created in love, by love, to love. And it would appear that over time, the logical mind has very slowly led people just a little by a little away from that place of knowing within themselves, that beautiful place of inner recognition of who you are, what you were made to be, to create, Not specifically, this is what you do, because you were granted free will. And I find that free will is both a blessing and a curse. We have the absolute ability to make our choices. We have the choice to move toward our spiritual values or to move away. And in these times, it is a time of deep consideration. As I'm also a professional astrologer, and I watch how the outer planets are changing the world. And they're changing the world very rapidly. You may feel as though your energy is just moving so fast that you wish things would slow down. And that is your cue. You begin to slow down. You begin to pay attention to how you feel pushed and to own for yourself. You do not have to follow someone else's patterns for you. Find yourself, know yourself, love yourself, and as you come home to yourself, you can actually move about in the outer world with a sense of safety and security. In the world, as the Bible says, but not of it, because you're no longer being caught up in the outer turmoil that the physical world is saying, this is who you are or are not. And this is all you have. And I can say from very personal experience that I've found, I guess some people would say I'm following my dream, that life can be absolutely lovely, even in the midst of all of that. I realize I can't change anybody else, but I can hopefully bring information, bring ideas, and yes, bring you love, because I feel so close to all the people that I work with. I really care about them. They feel like family. And so I just wanted to spend a little time. In some, I would be informing you for the first time. With others, I would be catching you up for the last 13 years since I've been on YouTube. I noticed that some of the clips that I have put on in the past have dates that are much more into this time, even into the 21st century. But it is that I stopped being able to uh, create and put up the posts in 2012. So moving deeper after that, the sessions are changed by some hand that I have no idea about. And now I'm delighted to come and speak with you, to share the different masters that I channel, to connect with you. I do want to let you know that I do private sessions with the Master Saint Germain. We do a program called Personal Growth, where every month you get an hour session with the Master Saint Germain, and you get your own personal MP3s of all the work we do. So I also am a professional astrologer, and I love doing horoscopes. I am a medical intuitive. I've been doing that since I was 21 years old. And I'm a tarot reader. So there are many different services that I offer, but my life work, my soul direction is with the masters. And so I want to invite you to come on my journey with me, to listen, to learn, to share if you wish. And I want to thank you so much for being in my life. God bless us all.